So the camera is recording, my audio recorder is recording, and to later sync it up, I'm going to do a clap, which then later on will help us to align the different audio tracks. So what I have set up here is my camera that is recording audio internally, and then I have a lavalier microphone that is recorded on a separate device. Whether you record audio on your phone in an external recorder or in your laptop doesn't make much of a difference. The idea just is to have the microphone closer and to later sync it up with the camera. For that to work, it is pretty handy to also record the audio that is coming out of your camera, because you could use automation in software that can align the two clips basically. So the video that is linked to the original audio and the other audio clip, because obviously the sound files are not going to sound the same, but they will have the same sound signature, and the software can pick that up and just align it. If that doesn't work, we still have the clap that has a visual reference, is present as a spike in the first audio and in the second audio. So it's pretty easy to just grab that one file basically, or one track, and align it with the spike in the other file, and then you're pretty much done and can continue to edit. So what else are we going to do? We will take this clip here that I'm recording now, put it into Davinci Resolve. I'm going to show you how to set up a project, how you then can import the video and audio files. Then we will go over basic editing and also of course aligning the audio, showing you the tools, what you can do to edit and how you can edit efficiently. And then how you can export your videos to go on YouTube or wherever you want to post them. So I would say I'm going to stop the recording and let's jump over to my desktop and show you how to import, and then going on with the editing. So hello, here on my desktop I just started Davinci Resolve version 15, which is the free version you can get. And this is basically the starting screen, and we have here on the left side basically our databases. And when you first launch Davinci Resolve, you have to set up a database. If this is not present, you can get it by putting the show and hide button, and then you set up different databases which can contain different projects. Here I set up one that is empty, and from there you can create folders here, and you can also create a new project or open them. So let's start by creating a new project, and we can do this by either going into an untitled project, or we hit new project and give it a name. So let's call it like this and hit create. So this opens up the interface of Davinci Resolve, and I want to go through by starting at the bottom here. We have different buttons that have different functions, and the first one is called media, where you basically do not do anything but put your clips in, put them in folders and structure your project. For simple projects, I would just skip this and go with the edit and timeline view, because you can also here add files and sort them through. If this is not present, you can always hit these hide buttons or toggle buttons and adjust your view, or you click on top of that to add the media pool, to add the effects library. And on the right side, you can do the same with the mixer, the files metadata, and the inspector. And I have everything open for now. Yeah, let's start by going through the other stuff that's down here. This is called Fusion, which is for animation and tracking. Not so much needed for simple editing. And then we have color, which if you want to get into detailed color corrections, you can go in there and later on do a color workflow based on nodes. And then the next thing you might want to check is the audio portion. And we will go through the audio just slightly when we finish up our editing. And the last button down here is called Deliver. What we have here is render settings, our clips on basically our timeline, and a render queue. And you would just choose different settings. You could just go for like YouTube and making it a 2K or full HD video, give it a file name, save it somewhere, and we will go through that when we have finished editing. So now let's go back to the edit and start with importing our files that we just recorded. So we are back here at the edit view. So before we just import the clips, let's go over to File, Project Settings, just to make sure this is the same as we want to upload it later on. So it makes it easier. Really important here is our timelines resolution. So if we want to start with a higher resolution or have video that is higher resolution and it's meant to be uploaded as a 4K, we have to make sure to adjust this. For now, this one is going to be full HD, and I'm going to send it at 24 frames basically. So just to make sure, if we have recorded anything else, we later will get a pop-up by importing that asks us what to do with the files we just tried to import. So it's really handy to know what we have set up here in the settings for our project. So this is fine, and now we import our files into the media pool. So you might get a pop-up if you have recorded in a different frame rate, like 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, because then the application wants to know what to do with it. Should it resample it to 24 frames or whatever? So the next thing we now have to do is, so we have these two clips. So now we're just going to go over here, and as we have recorded two sources of audio, we can just go here in and say synced audio based on the waveform. Now it's analyzing and it's pretty much done, and we can grab this and put it down here. So now we add another mono track and pull this over, and it should be pretty much the same. If that doesn't work for you, so let's do this again and just copy over our video file and separately our audio file. And then over here, you can zoom in into your timeline. So now you see they're not perfectly in line, but let's mute this. But here we have this little clap, right? And zooming in further, it's going to be very easy to drag this clip over and align it with the other clip. So now they are in line again. Yeah. So you can zoom in even further and make it. So that's step number one. Either you choose to do it automatically and just drag it over, or you do it manually by aligning a clap or something. So next step, over here you will see you have created a timeline. So in a project you can create different timelines. Let's say you want to make one timeline that is going to YouTube and want to make another edit that is going to be shorter and going to be shown on Instagram or whatever it's going to be. You can just add timelines and create different edits in these different timelines. Let's now start thinking about the editing. So let's go down here, and what you will notice is when I click on the video file and selected the audio file that is recorded with it, is also going to be selected, but not the additional audio. That leads to some issues with our editing, because if we make a cut, let's say down here, it will make the cut in the audio and video that is linked together. We also have this little button down here, or this little indication that these files are linked. And if we cut a portion out, you can then select this. And if you hit backspace, it's just going to delete it. And if you hit delete, it will ripple delete it. But we have not changed the file down below, which makes things more complicated, because if you would want the same, you would have to make a cut here and here as well, and they have to perfectly align, and then you have to select all of them again, which also would work. But again, the cuts would have to be completely the same. So let's step back to having no cuts. So what we can do now is to select all of these, right click, and choose link clips. Now this one also gets the link icon, and when we select either one, all the files are going to be selected. So now if we make this cut here and here, they're going to be perfectly in line, and you can just delete this and start your editing like this. So that's super important. There's also no need to throw out the original audio. So you have some more buttons that allows you to control the tracks here. And one is solo and the other one is mute. Solo means that just this one track is going to be played back. And mute means we can mute the whole clip and just are left with the second recording we have done. And yeah, so to sync it up, I'm going to do a clamp. So that's in terms of linking files and start with your edit. So now let's think about what you can do. The first tool you need is the pointer to make a selection. You can either click or you can obviously drag, as you have seen before. Then you can go to the edges of every clip and you get different markers, which allows you to shorten clips and start your editing like this. There are also shortcuts for the blade editor or razor. You use the R on your keyboard. So you can start cutting, hitting the R button. You can go back to selection with the V button. And then there is the time edit mode, which is super handy, because let's consider we have this gap here and we want to edit the gap out. Let's go to the gap. And let's say we want to take this gap out and we made a mistake and wanna just edit things out. So now you just need to make one cut and then switch to the time selection tool. So now what we can do here is either to change where this cut is made. So we can set the cut here if we wanted to keep this portion, or we can set the cut here. So nothing has changed except for where the cut is going to be. And now we can move from the middle of the two clips slightly to the right or left side, and the indicator is going to change. And now we can use the time selector to trim the other clips. So instead of what you usually would do is grab the razor again and let's say like, oh, I want to cut here, and then you have to select the middle portion and then cut it out. Instead of doing all these steps, you just cut once, switch to the other tool, and then you drag the other clip to where it should start. And then just sync it up with the camera. And then you can clean up the other side. It's like, okay, this is still going too far, and then we push it in. And to later sync it up with the camera. For that, And so you can just make one cut, edit things out, and yeah, that's going to be really helpful. So what else could you do is we can do this obviously at the start, right? So if this is going to be our start, let's cut things here. Go to V for the selection tool and put it here. So then sometimes you want to make transitions. We have transitions over here in the toolbox, video transitions like cross dissolve. You can put it in between here, and then you have with the camera for that a cross dissolve. What else do we have? I mean, you can go down there. There's quite a few things like you might have been using in the past, like a wipe with the camera for that. Or let's maybe do a slide. And to later sync it up with the camera. For that to work, stuff like this. So if you want to do that, you will find all of these in the video transition. But I want to show something else. In terms of transitions, there's no need to make a transition to black, because what you can do here is when you select a clip, you see on the left side and on the top right side, we have these little markers. And these allow us to, as you can see here, blend things in. So if I do this and go to the start, we start from black. So and the camera is recording my audio and then it's going to transition in up to the point where we have set this. So let's say we want to have a transition of 2 seconds. 1, so the camera 2, and then the clip is fully displayed. The same goes for audio. If you want to change the edges where maybe you start with an inhale or something, you can just cut things out at the beginning and end of a clip. So I wouldn't do it in between cuts, but yeah, it's something you can do. Another thing you can do is add titles, lower thirds, scroll text, and stuff like this. There are fusion titles which need a little bit more processing, but we have easy things like scroll text, regular text on lower thirds. Let's start with a lower third and just drag them over. So when I put them onto the same track as our video, it will make a cut because the video has to go somewhere. So we put it over our video and it will automatically create a video track number 2. So double clicking on it, we can change the title and its properties. So let's call it how to get, and let's go there. So now we can change the font and let's see which one to choose. Maybe this one. No, let's stick with this one. So then we can change obviously the color and all that fun stuff. Can position it. Yeah, so this is supposed to be a lower third. So let's put it somewhere in the lower part of the frame. You can rescale it. You can basically track it. You can set background colors, outline colors, all that stuff. Again, if you really want to set it, so you could make this like a lower third and blend it together a little bit and change the opacity of that, so you can make it a nice and half translucent area to have your text read a little bit more easily. Then obviously it will start just being blended in, and you can obviously very easily use these top anchors to have it blend in. Align the different audio tracks. So what I have set up here is right. So that's a super easy way to make an animation to have text appear and disappear, is with these little top markers. What else you could do then is, if you have set up one, let's say your title, and you want to add some descriptive text throughout your video, you just alt click and drag it over, which will copy it. Obviously, you will then change the text here, and here it will then display something else. And you can do this throughout your video and end your video pretty much the same. You drag things in, maybe cut the end here, and use these transition arrows again on the audio and video. Jump over to my desktop and show you how to import and then going on with the editing. So again, that's a really simple edit from cutting things using the eraser tool, using the timeline tool, adding text, adding transitions, making it very simple appear animation. And I pretty much hope that this is going to help you to create your edits. Now let's have a look at the audio in general, because audio obviously is a big part of it. And you see here how things are peaking. And then I have a lavalier microphone. So we can now change to the audio part of the software, which is called Fairlight. Then over here, the timeline is going to appear, but without the video part of it. But what we are interested here is these features called the loudness and all these. Yeah, these features. So you can bump up your audio to a relatively normal level. You record audio on your phone in an external recorder or in your laptop. Doesn't make much of a difference. The idea just is to have the microphone closer. We could do some stuff here to make it a little bit louder. So let's go to the mixer part. We can obviously add volume here and to later sync it up with the camera. For that to work, it is pretty handy to also record the audio and then you see out of your camera, because that the volume is going to rise. Software that can align the. What we also could do is use effects. For that, let's just reset this to 0 and hit the effects button. And then we use Fairlight effects, and use something like the vocal channel. It looks complicated now, but what we want to do is to add a little bit of compression to minimize the loud parts and raise the other parts. Clips basically. So you see we are going to the original audio and the other audio clip peak out at around like 12 or something. So now let's put our threshold at something lower than 12, definitely lower, like between, maybe 23 or something. So we want to make everything that is going over 23 decibels less loud and the other parts louder. So if I switch the compressor on, obviously the sound you see it's going to be activated when it goes over 23. And the software can pick that up and just align it. And then we can add gain. That doesn't work. We still have the to make everything else louder. As a visual reference is present as a spike in the first audio and in the second audio. So it's pretty easy to just grab that one. So if I now switch it off, you see it's going to be a little bit more dynamic, but not as loud and not as present. And if I switch it on, of course, aligning the audio, showing you the tools, what you can do to edit and how you can edit efficiently, and then how you can export your videos to go on YouTube or wherever you want to post them. So I would say I will stop the recording and we see. So that's what I want to show you is, a little bit compression, because you can add gain here in a controlled way. It's super simple just to look at where you are peaking and just to decrease the loud parts. That's pretty easy. And if that is too complicated, you simply raise the volume here. Jump over to my desktop. Until you are in a good state. The goal is here getting to around 0 of a variation. So we are a little bit over here and a little bit under, but we will average out at like 0. Pick that up and just align it. So that's something to keep in mind, which helps you to make all your video clips sound relatively the same loudness, the same voice basically. You can also do your voiceover in here. So if you had a clip that your audio was not right and you want to overdub it, simply what you would do is to create another track, a mono track, and then on the right side here in the mixer, you will see also these A3, which we will now call overdubbing. What you need to do then is to set an input where it's going to record. Now I'm just choosing an input, which will look a little bit different on your side. So you just need to use your microphone here. Should be fine now. So, and then we have to hit record. You now see that my microphone is showing up, and you could just go and hit record.
Doesn't work, we still have the clamp that.
So you mute or unmute
the first audio
and just start talking.
So it's pretty easy to just grab that one.
Yeah, so that's basically what you can do, is to overdub your files here right into the editing software. I do not want to make it too complicated. It's just to show that you do not have to record on your phone and just plug in a microphone into your desktop. Choose the sound source that is going to record, arm the recording, and hit the record button. And then you can start trimming things up here if you need that, or cut things out, or delete it and redo it. All that stuff that makes life much easier. So then let's go to the last bit, the export. So if we look at our timeline, it's going to be like here, like 2 minutes or something long, what I recorded. Yeah, you then give it a file name, like starting with Davinci Resolve. You choose a location where you want to save it. You could then just use a preset for YouTube, Vimeo, or whatever you want to do. And it's going to set all the settings here for you. The format and the codec is going to be set automatically. And then in terms of the file, again, here is where you can set the name, or on top of here, it's going to be completely the same. So if I now click out of that, it's going to change there. Render speed, you put to maximum. It also shows you an estimate of how much space you're going to have left. And then you add it to the render queue. So I have not set a destination. So now I'm getting prompted to add one. And I could add it here. And then it's going to be over in our render queue. And then I could start editing the next video, the next video, the next video. And when I have a few jobs over here and you might want to go to bed and have your computer doing all the work, then you start rendering all the clips. Yeah, all there's left to do is hitting start render. If you made a mistake, you can just hit edit. So then it's going to open here on the side again, or you hit delete. That's pretty much it, I would say. So yeah, I can't think of another application that is cheaper and will deliver the same professional results. Again, that's why I would recommend editing with Davinci Resolve. I hope it's going to work for you. If you have any issues or any questions, you can always ask me. But I think I covered pretty much everything that is needed to make a simple video. So I really hope it was helpful. Yeah, so let me know.